Hello and welcome to the AdTech Heroes podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about building successful teams, and I'm delighted to be joined by Seun Odeneye. Seun is the managing director at Matterkind UK and Ireland, which is IPG's addressable activation agency. Previous to working at IPG, Seun worked at Mindshare and Microsoft as a senior lead across programmatic and performance. Hi, Seun. How's it going?
I'm good, Dal. You yourself?
I'm really good, mate. Really good. I'm just hoping the Wi-Fi doesn't drop off. It's been a bit hit and miss at home recently. I hope the
That
same is for you.
no, mine is good. Mine is good.
Perfect. So, no, just to begin with, it'd be great to understand a little bit about your career, and what's got you to here now.
Yeah. So my name's Seun Odeneye. I'm managing director of UK and Ireland. In my dream job, working for an IPG agency. I think I always kind of like would tee up my intros like this, right? And I always kind of need to clarify why it's my dream job. And it's not just because I work with great people. It's not just because I work with great clients and my team deliver great work, but a black man, MD of a media agency, someone born in the 90s like me, you understand why that's my dream job. But yeah, Matterkind is the addressable part of IPG. Previous to that, I was at a WPP agency, heading up in the department. And then before that, I was at Microsoft for over 8 years. And I actually think, I guess, having experienced both buy side and sell side really gives me a good 360 view of how this industry works. And it really allows me to kind of put that customer first in everything I do.
Amazing. I want to touch on the element there that I think was, just straight away off the bat was super interesting and engaging. To say that under the circumstances or under whatever it might be, born in the 90s, black man in a media agency, senior position, that's meant a lot to you. And I'm sure, hopefully, with a lot of people coming up the ranks, right, in the agency world, on the media owners, you want to look up at someone and see yourself in that person to really aspire and push themselves up to be in that position. So have you had someone that you've, as a role model for yourself within our industry to look up to? And yeah, is there any advice that you would give to people that, possibly do want to, go up the ladder and kind of hopefully be at the way where you're at now?
I think it's a really good question. And interesting enough, we're in October, Black History Month. So
Mhm.
it's quite probably fitting. I'm not sure when you're going to release this, but I wouldn't say I had a leader that I looked up to per se, but I've had many leaders of different cultures, colors, backgrounds that I've been inspired by. One of the consistent themes I would say that I've seen when I joined the industry, outside of my internship, and I'll come back to that in a second, is that I never really saw leaders that looked like me. And what I mean of ethnic origin, of color, etc. But the interesting thing about that is that I done an internship. I started my career as an intern in AdLink, and my first MD was black. So I actually thought it was normal originally. And then I finished that internship, went back to uni for my final year, came back. And then actually, as I started to progress in this career, I noticed that that wasn't the norm. So I was inspired to progress and be that change that I wanted to see. So now people can look at me and go, wow, okay, cool. Not me sitting on my pedestal. There's nothing I've done that's amazing, but I can do that because he's done that. Because there's nothing special about me, right? There is no glass ceiling. Yes, I wouldn't say there isn't systematic racism that transcends every industry, but I guess if I articulate myself in this way, if you work hard, if you kind of have the right mentors, mentees around you, you can progress. And I just feel like there's a need to kind of be that presence. If I articulate in a different way, actually, when I was brought up in inner city, southeast London, where everybody looked like me, talked like me, sounded like me, and I was in somewhat an echo chamber. They might have went through the same struggles as me, right? And I think sometimes when you grow up in that background, you're a product of your environment, right? I'm lucky enough I had my late mum that inspired me, and she made sure that I stayed in school, I went to college, I went to uni, and the only way I went to uni, I noticed a change. And I I remember going into a shop one day at uni, and the need to over over how do I put this? I had to kind of go out my way to be polite, go out my way to really show them that because they were intimidated by me, right? Like, let's call it spade about spade. They saw a 6'3" black guy, and then I noticed that wow, other people that I sit on the board with at the moment haven't gone through what I've gone through. But this is really early on in my career, and then I also realized I had to do a lot of unlearning. And at the time when I was doing that unlearning, I probably felt that I wasn't being true to myself. And in me unlearning, am I taking away some of my, am I not being authentic? Right. But actually, in hindsight, that unlearning was fine because I got brought up in a certain environment. I said to you, a product environment, so I acted a certain way. And there's a way you act in different environments, right? And I always use this example. You don't act the same way you do in a football match that you do in a wedding service, right? You don't talk to your wife the same way you talk to your friends. When I talk to my wife, I lower the tone. I'm a bit more subtle. I'm like, hey babe, how are you? When I talk to my friends, I'm a bit hype, right? So there's a need to adapt and unlearn and change in different circumstances. And I realized that really quickly. And that's a big narrative I really try to push to people that yes, be authentic, but bring the best professional version of yourself to work. And I think that really helped me really early on in my career where I was I was trying to navigate through the working environment without changing, without adapting. And there was a need to adapt. And actually, 15 years later, I don't believe that I'm any different man than I was back then. The difference is that I've learned to understand the environment I'm in and adapt. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and I can agree. I totally agree with you. Again, not born in the '90s. I was on the late '80s, so maybe a little bit older. And it was a similar
Sorry,
situation.
I was actually I was born in the 80s as well, but grew up in the 90s.
Grew up in the 90s.
I wish I was born in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
No, definitely, and I can totally relate to that. And I think what it goes down to, and from my experience anyway, is kind of growing up and not knowing that all these different types of jobs existed. From being from a North Indian background myself, I grew up with my parents wanting me to either be a doctor, a solicitor, or work in accounting, right? So being exposed to the world that we're in now, whether it's programmatic advertising, whatever you want to call it, I just didn't know it existed. And I know it was in its infancy, even kind of 10, 12 years ago when I joined the industry. So I think the education needs to be there in all the different communities and all the backgrounds. And I think it's not up to the community to learn that there is this advertising industry. It's about the advertising industry to go into the communities and to really showcase the great things and the great people that have worked their way up within the industry. So I think, in my opinion, that's super important.
100%.
Yeah.
And to that point, actually, little plug. I've been volunteering for a few charities, but one in particular, Media for All, MEFA.
Mhm.
And I think a big part of that, I'm a mentor for MEFA for the last 2.5 years, and a big part of that is doing that. How do we do outreach programs, reaching people? We also do that in IPG around how do we reach certain colleges that are in certain different backgrounds to get real diversity of thought into the workplace.
hmm Yeah, and I've mentioned Bricks and Finishing School a few times in different episodes, and I think they're a great. It's another great initiative or project, whatever you want to call it, in addressing that and going after those individuals that might not necessarily have known this industry existed or feel that. I think that's the key thing: feel they are capable of entering this industry. And going back to your point about adapting and changing. When you join the industry, you do feel like you need to go, all guns blazing, exactly like the person sat next to you. And I think, yeah, it's not as easy as that, right? It's not a case of, okay, they're going out drinking, I don't drink, but I have to drink now to be part of the team. And, I've spoken to a few people in the industry that have never drunk before and feel obliged that, they're going to be alienated if they don't drink and they're not in that kind of party or drinking culture within the industry, which we've seen as a big part of our industry. Maybe it's changed a little bit now, but kind of 10 years ago, it definitely was. So yeah, I think that's, there's a lot of things at play here, right? I think we're not gonna
Yeah,
we could probably
yeah,
talk
no,
about it for hours and hours, but I think the key thing here is
100%.
education, communication, speaking to people within the industry, whether you're junior, whether you're senior, and really getting their take on it, because someone that's entering now after uni might have totally different things that
Yeah,
they're thinking
100%.
about versus what we did.
Just to build on that, actually, especially the drinking piece, because I don't drink, right?
Mhm,
But when I done my internship, I did drink quite a bit, and I remember doing my internship, doing it, living that media dream, and thinking, "Wow, bloody hell, media is work hard, play hard. Definitely want to come back
mhm.
there." And then I went to my last year of uni, and then I decided to stop drinking. I had a come to Jesus moment, and then literally, but but what was really interesting is uh, when I want to come back in the industry, a friend of mine said, like, "You don't drink no more, so, like, you're gonna find it difficult to adapt, like, what's the point?" And I remember him saying that, and I was just thought, "Oh, wow, has he got a point there?" And I really deliberated it with my friends and family, then, "Do I really wanna do it? I don't really drink no more." And a lot of kind of work's done in the pub, drinking, a lot of socializing done then. But I decided to come back, and I didn't compromise myself. And here I am, what, 15 years later, still not drinking and still socializing with my peers, my clients, my suppliers, still working with them and still progressing into my career.
Yeah, I think the culture's slightly changed from what I've seen. Is the younger generation like to be a little bit more healthier, a bit more active, and it's not so much the big lunches that would go on to the evening anymore, and heavy drinking. It's more let's do something that is going to benefit our bodies now, and not just poison them on a daily basis. So yeah, obviously you're going to have boozy lunches, and you still will have that, but I definitely think it's reduced from 10, 12 years ago.
Mm. It's really funny how this conversation gone
I
completely
know.
different to. I think
No,
we were
no,
going to
it's
talk about
interesting.
teams and that, but it's no, it's really great
No,
discussion point. To be honest.
I think it's super interesting, and I wanted to talk about it because I think when it comes to diversity, it's something that needs to be addressed, and you mentioning that and role models and that kind of thing, I think is super relevant, and it should be at the front of most conversations that are being had in the industry because we don't talk about it enough, and I think it needs to be addressed from the start. So yeah, I think yeah, off the back of that, really, wanted to understand, a little bit more about your role within IPG, and yeah, we can start off with what a typical day looks like for you. Is any day the same, or do you have a specific routine? When you wake up to when you finish at night.
I think that's really funny, right? Because we got an event next week, and I was trying to work out how I introduce and tee up the event, and I decided to talk about two different journeys: my pre-pandemic journey and my post-pandemic journey, because that they are fundamentally different. And why it fits into what we're talking about now and fits into this industry is my two separate journeys also mean I consume media in two different ways now. Because to your point, no day is the same now. Pre-pandemic, it was very kind of regimented, as in I was in the office 5 days a week. Let's talk about my working week, right? I was in the office 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, up at 6, on the train at 7, watching YouTube or Spotify or news content or gaming apps, all the way to Farringdon, to my desk, interacting with my team, then meetings, working, back home for 6:30, put the kids to bed at 7, wind down with my wife, watching a different couple of different shows, and repeat, literally. But now, uh, look, I'm at home today. I was actually meant to be in the office, and I've changed my mind last minute because I thought some of my team won't be there because of the train strike. That talks to the fact that no day is the same, right? And no day is the same because I go to the office 2, 3, 4 times a week sometimes. I work from home 2, 3, 4 times a week sometimes. It's agile. It changes. So therefore, my routine changes, right? When a standard work from home day is that I'll be up in the morning still, but I'll be in the gym, right? Come back from the gym, because I'm working from home, most of the time I might do the school runs. Never ex I would have never experienced the school run, right, in a pre-pandemic world. Let's be honest. We're in the office 5 days a week. I wouldn't even know what school run is like. Like me and my wife, I always tell my wife about it. Like, I still get quite emotional when I do a school run. I'm like, this is amazing. I take my son to school, uh, and he waves at me, he walks down. Then when he gets to the corner, he turns back and he waves at me. That's like that is something that can't be brought. It can't be explained. You've got to go through it, right? I'm back to to my desk at home in this room and I'm working. I'm in meetings, in between meetings, I'm doing emails, but I might be listening to Talksport LBC. Wouldn't put Talksport LBC on in the office because actually not everyone appreciates sports or not everyone appreciates Alan Brazil or whoever I'm listening to. So I might have my, pre-pandemic, I might have my AirPods on when I'm not interacting. So it's fundamentally different. What I'm doing, how my day is in a pre-pandemic, now in a I guess new world, right? Where you got flexi working. But the premise of my job stays the same, delivering meaningful moments for my clients. And that means getting the right teams in place, motivating the teams, making sure my teams are best equipped to put out fires, but proactively give solutions to clients, right? And I'm really passionate about uh, the fact that whether you're in your virtual office or physical office, you're at work sometimes and you're with work colleagues more than you're with your loved ones. So let's make that working environment amazing to work. Let's make that working environment such a great place to work. So we're going to get the best out of our people and therefore deliver great work for our clients.
Definitely, and it's interesting you mentioned that, and the work-life balance is obviously changed a lot since COVID and working from home culture. It's also scary that we live very parallel lives. I drop off my son in the mornings and listen to Talksport on the way back in my car, and I know if my wife's been in the car because it's always on Capital rather than on Talksport. So I always make that quick change, and 10 minutes just to myself. That drive back, which is always good. Um, you mentioned a few things there about your role and what you do, but is there a specific part of it that you enjoy most?
You know, there's so much of my job I love. If I kind of start high level and go that I love this industry. I think we generally put real great solutions for our clients. I love it, and that transcends just IPG. We do it as an industry. We do it as an ecosystem. So I love the industry. In particular, my job. I love my company, but I love my company because of the people that I work with. It's fundamentally the people, and whether that's my peers, my colleagues, or people that work in my organization. I love coming to work, working with smart people, um, and that's what really drives me.
Perfect. And how do you find those smart people? I think that's always interesting, right? I think we're in an industry where, it's a very big industry now. It's got a lot bigger and there's a lot of competition, whether it's in the agency world, media owner space, ad tech space. How do you find the best talent to be in your teams? Is there a specific thing that you do or a certain criteria that you're looking at?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. What do we do to find great people? I think firstly the industry's small, so everybody knows everybody, or everybody knows somebody that knows everybody, right? And this kind of speaks to the fact that you should never burn bridges. You know, I say that because I don't know the demographics of the people that listen to your podcast, but you start this industry, you're early in the industry, and typically as a young person in the industry, you don't mind burning bridges and you think it's not a big deal. It is a big deal actually because the industry's small, right? So to that point, you've either worked with them in the past or you know somebody that's worked with them in the past and they come highly recommended. So that's one way of how we find great people is that have who have I worked with in the past that I thought was really smart. And that's one way. And I think that's kind of one channel of bringing in really smart people. The issue with that is that sometimes you're then gonna always be getting the same type of perspective in the organization. And what I mean by perspective is again, going back to the diversity piece is white males. Because when you've worked in the industry as long as me, and I've not worked there that long, right? But and people that worked longer than me, the industry was very heavily dominated with white males, right? There's nothing wrong with white males, by the way, and I've got an anecdote about that in a second. But you need to have diversity of thought. So on one hand, it's small work, small industry. Everybody knows everybody. Let's get people that you've worked with in the past. But there's also another part around engaging with recruitment agencies and recruiters that bring in a selection of profiles that represent diverse thoughts. So it's about opening doors. And if you open doors and you get a good selection of candidates that are diverse, then you pick the best people. You don't just pick a black person or person of color to tick a box. You open up doors, have a selection of people that are diverse, then you pick the best. And actually, interesting enough, in my leadership team is really diverse. And that probably comes because you got a black leader, right? But my poster person of great talent, but diverse talent, is a white male in my leadership team, which is quite ironic. He's a poster child of diversity, not because he's the only white male on my leadership team, by the way, but that is kind of, he's one of two actually, my leadership team, but more because I was looking for my head of product and strategy, really important role in my leadership team. And I remember saying to the recruit, I need a diverse set of people. I got a diverse set of people. And then in the shortlist, once we went through the first stage, we had one white male, one, I think it was a black person, one lady of color, and then a white lady. They were all great candidates, but I chose the best, and the best was the white male. And I talked to that because the whole point around diversity isn't just ticking boxes. It's around making sure that everything you do and every time you open up a role, you're getting diverse candidates, but you need to pick the best person.
I think that's a great advice, because I'm not sure how much of that is happening. You know, the first conversation you have with a recruiter, and then you say to them, bring me diverse, a diverse pool of candidates. And like you said, that doesn't have to just be color. That could be gender, that could be background, upbringing, degree, no degree, whatever
Correct.
it is, right? So I think that's a very good point you mentioned, in building successful teams, and going back to, kind of like the topic that we're talking about today. We need to address those questions and have give at least a chance, right, for people from diverse backgrounds to apply for the job. And then, yeah, like you said, you might not give it to that person of color or different type of background. That's the norm, quote unquote. But at least you've given the chance. And ultimately, like you said, it shouldn't be about that. It should be about giving the role to the right person that fits what you're after.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's interesting because that is how you should be shaping your team. When I think about, how you shape your team, like for me, it's a combination of your vision. When I think about how I shape my team, actually, let me not talk for everybody. It's a combination of the vision I have for the organization, but feedback from other people. Because, it's crazy how many leaders out there just make autonomous decisions that they think's best. Don't get me wrong, a leader needs to direct, needs to make decisions, but there's so much power in perspective and understanding different perspectives that can drive impact for organizations. If it was just always Sean, everything's going to be like, it's just going to be one perspective, right? But there's so much power in bringing different perspectives. When I think about it, people at work are there with us more than they're with their family, right? So that's why you need to get perspective, because if you understand how each individual's they see work, they see how working life could be, and they see how you get the best out of them. You take all that knowledge, you take all that perspective, and as a leader, you form the direction you want to go in. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it goes to my next question. What kind of leader are you? What would your team say about Sean? And you know, how would they describe you? And you've kind of touched on it at the start. It's very different how you are at work versus at home. So I think it'd be great to get that comparison. You know, how would people see you at home and your family versus versus at work?
I think that, yeah, really good question. I would probably lead with, oh, I would say they will probably lead with and say, I'm human, right? And that sounds really basic, right? But that will probably follow quite a lot of adjectives like approachable, relatable, honest, transparent. Because, growing up in this space, I always remember some of the greatest leaders I had. And it wasn't just their charisma that attracted me to them. And that's really important too, by the way. But a common thread of every great leader that has led me was that they were human. They were just nice people. And I really think that's my superpower, you know, just being human, being nice, and being relatable.
And you think that is such a big part is the empathy element to it, and being that human, and you know, just being real and honest, rather than, you know, just focusing on the job and focusing on your KPIs and what's needed. You think that's what people
100%.
would
Because
describe?
if
Yeah.
100%, 'cause if you see the thread of what I'm talking about, I spoke about perspectives in one hand. Now I
Mhm.
spoke about being human. It's all linked, right? It's all
Yeah.
linked to empathy. I think fundamentally, right, every organization wants to make a profit, right? Make money for the organization, right? Let's be honest, right? That's what we're all here for. Everyone's there to work for them to make money. But if you strip that back for a second, the most valuable assets in your organization are the people. See, if you can get happy people, those happy people are going to be productive. Those productive people are going to produce great work. That great work can be reflected on your clients. Your clients are going to spend more, deliver more with you, and trust you more.
Mhm. Definitely. And you've mentioned how you attract talent, but how do you keep talent at IPG? Is there specific things that you do, or the leadership team do, to ensure that talent is kept within the IPG group?
I think that's a really difficult question to answer, and I say difficult because I think every leader's ambition is to retain talent. I look at the success of my organization in our retention. If I'll be honest with you, I say it's hard because we've gone through a period, and I know we're about to go through a new period of uncertainty. We've gone through a period where you've essentially had a war in talent, and a lot of junior people they care about money. Let's call a spade, right? But money aside, there's a need to give people more. And when I say give people more, is delivering every other element that makes them say this is a good place to work. So everyone wants more money, right? I want more money, you want more money, everyone wants more money. But actually, when money aside, people choose organizations because of their leadership. They choose organizations because of their culture. And in an in an the most articulate way, our culture at Matterkind is we're not dickheads, right? Everybody's worked for a dickhead before, and nobody likes it, right? So how do we all have that empathy and engage with people in meaningful ways and have meaningful conversations to understand how do we make this place a good place to work? And because we do that, I think we are being successful in that retention area. But it's bloody hard. It's bloody hard because there's a war in talent, and other organizations are starting to realize, oh wow, we need to start being nice to our people. But I mean, I think people can, especially employees, they can see genuine people, and I think they need to be genuine in what you do. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, makes total sense, and I think it's so true. You know, it's not. It is obviously a lot of it is about the money, but it's about the culture that you instill within the company that you work for, and you know, you see happy employees and productivity, obviously, in turn. increases as a result of that. And shifting the focus more to, I suppose, programmatic and how we build successful programmatic teams. And my experience has always been on the media owner side. So I can talk about this for hours and hours and what you need to do from a media owner perspective, whether it's education, having the right tools, being honest. I'm sure a lot of these things can relate to the agency side as well. But yeah, how in your experience on the agency side, how do you build these programmatic teams to be successful in amongst, the other trading desks that are out there, or the other independents that are out there, or, all these small like startups that are coming up now and probably competing with you guys, more specific to programmatic? How do you continue that success at Matterkind?
I think I've mentioned the people obviously are the great assets, but when you speak about programmatic in particular, I think where we've got to get better is how do we bring everything together, and how do we allow technology and the innovation in technology help deliver our clients' objectives. So at Matterkind specifically, we've built various types of proprietary technology that allow, firstly, our traders to work better, efficiently, but also technology that allows our clients to really tear down channel silos. And a combination of those two things, coupled with great people, I believe drives that success. Our people and our technology.
So it all comes down to that with programmatic, right? Because you can't have one without the other. You need the people, but then you also need strong technology backing it. In terms of our industry, what excites you about the future? And yeah, that could relate to the people or technology side, whatever you see fit.
What excites me about our industry? Everything. The change, the growth. Let's just look at. I love talking about video and TV. Right? What does TV even mean? It's a good question, right? But I love looking at this space because, firstly, it's coming into our world, addressable programmatic. But look at eMarket had some stats that they released, and they said by 2023, the average UK person is going to have 12 connected devices. It's a lot. And I was playing that back with me, thinking about my device. I was thinking, actually, I've probably got about 9 already. So yeah, I think that's probably right. 2,700 digital interactions per day, which will lead to 100,000 opportunities per hour. The average UK consumer is living in an ever so digital world. So it's really paving the way for this exponential growth in the emergence of addressability. So let's put this in perspective. I remember my head of product and strategy put this on my radar. You should be 17 years old. So in a year's time, you'll have your first adult that only know TV to be on demand. I've really got small kids, right? But I see my toddler and he thinks he could talk to everything. Microwave on. No, it doesn't work like that yet. But that's the type of world they're living in, right? So an adult that only knows on demand first means in 4 years' time, you're going to get your first comms planner that walked into an agency, and linear TV is going to be an afterthought. They're going to be thinking about connected TV, on demand, broadcaster bot. And the mindset of people that work in the agencies is going to change. So with the emergence of addressability and the evolution of this mindset, it's really going to change the type of people that go into the agency. And, the growth in this space is really going to pave the way for precision. And that excites me. Excites me because it's moving into our world, right? Our world is about that right user, actually, that's not even our world. That's the marketing world. The marketing world is that right user, right place, right time. And actually, the more and more channels that are emerging channels that are coming to this world where we can start being more addressable, excites me.
Amazing. I've got a final question for you. We usually finish off our our podcast episode with this question. I think you touched on it earlier. It'd be great if you could elaborate. But if you had a superpower in ad tech, what would it be?
So I already said to you, I think my superpower is my human attribute. But a blue sky superpower, I probably would say one technology that does everything. It breaks down every silo. It breaks down every wall garden. It breaks it around every channel, every team. It transcends it all. And we just use one technology for all of our clients.
Well, it'll be a lot simpler that way, right?
Exactly. Imagine what that Lumoscape looks like then.
Literally one technology. Amazing. I think that's all we've got time in today's episode. Thank you, Sean, for your time.
Thank you, Dal. Really appreciate it.